How's it going, guys? Thanks for tuning in to the Phil Talk Sports podcast. College football is back, and so is Nick Rice for this episode. How's it going, man? It's been a while. Must be football time if you're here.
It sure is, man. I just got back. I went from Vegas to Miami to Cancun to all the way to Mars, and I just came back today. So, and I had to because it's football season, and Phil's here, and I'm here. So let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick's here. I'm here. Trigger's sleeping behind me on the couch. Everything is right with the world right now. So we're gonna get right into it. College football week 1 starts really tomorrow. We're recording this on Wednesday. We got a few games on Thursday, including my UCF Knights game. They play tomorrow. So we're really going to get into the thick of things. We had the little appetizer week 0 last week, which just what's your take on week 0? I kind of like it. It like kind of just leans you into the season. You get like 1 or 2 games that are worth checking out, and it just reminds you that football is back.
Yeah, well, I think college football needs to take advantage of more of the NFL off time. Like NFL is now rating the NBA with games on Christmas, and then you have Thursday and you have Monday, but there's still plenty of opportunity to college football to take control of those days that the NFL doesn't have. So I think at some point, college football needs to realize, hey, week 0 is a pretty cool time, and maybe a few more games might actually be like 1 or 2 headliners would be really cool to throw out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the preseason for the NFL going to 3 games, that's a little more real estate that you could attempt to eat up. But you mentioned, some headline games. There was really only one true headline game, which was played in Ireland, which I think is a really cool thing. If they can keep that consistent on a week 0, I think that'd be really neat. But I feel like I'm in Groundhog Day right now because I remember sitting in this exact spot last year talking about almost the same thing. Scott Frost in a week 0 game when all eyes are on him, only because of it being played in week 0. If this game gets played next week on a noon kickoff with 18 other games going on, nobody really cares. But he's under the microscope for this big game. They're up 11 at half, go for the onside kick. They don't get it. They end up losing the game. And I've never seen a coach have a hot seat quite as hot as this and still have his job at the time of this recording.
Yeah, I mean, there aren't many games where you can say a bad coaching decision was the difference in that game. That onside kick, it seemed really sparked the Nebraska collapse. And to think about just what they did last year, and then now when you throw in we'll touch on it later, but new teams going to the Big Ten, USC and UCLA. Now you've got a conference that's even with more spotlight going to be certainly tougher conference to even compete in. And yeah, a really tragic day for him. But, for guys that are looking for the authenticity of the game, we aren't too bothered.
Yeah, I mean, people know, and I've never shied away from I'm not saying I want this guy to lose his job necessarily, but do I get a little enjoyment out of what's become of him in Nebraska? Absolutely. I'm never going to pretend like that's not the case.
Yep.
And, more and more, what I learned this week, and I didn't even plan on bringing this up. They made, I don't know who it was in Nebraska, but there is a comic book that you can buy that chronicles the shadiness of what got Scott Frost from UCF to Nebraska. This is a comic book that you can purchase with real money that's animated, that some artwork's great, by the way. I can't even lie about that. But there's a comic book you can buy that shows that when we went to play Temple, they met him at some hotel outside of Philly because it wasn't that far for the Nebraska people travel. All this stuff is there's a real comic book about it, which that just blew my mind. I thought somebody just because they shared one page of it and I thought it was just like a joke, but no, it's a full real 25-page comic book.
Well, Scott Frost is making all of his players throw up before games because of how hard he's working them. Maybe he needs to throw them up a little bit more. It's just incredible to see a guy that had it all at a big time university and just abandoned it. But, I haven't read that comic book yet. So maybe there's even more behind the scenes that I don't even know about that place.
And I mean, just the stats are staggering here. He's 15-30 overall as a head coach. 3-20 down at the half, and he's 5-21 in 1-score games, in close games, essentially. So
wow.
I think close games is really when coaching. 1-score games is almost a good metric of your coaching staff because you could have really talented players, but when it's a close game, I think the coaching matters. I think you look at, we talk about Scott Frost leaving UCF. We're in a pretty good spot right now with Gus Malzahn. But when we had Josh Heupel, there was a lot of close games. We once had our 4 losses his first year were by a combined 7 points. So he had a little bit of that in him as well. Hopefully that's not the case moving forward with Gus Malzahn. But I think when you look at that record, 5-21 in one-score games, that's coaching. That's when coaching. You can really look, like you said, the one moment that the onside kick, and let's dissect that a little bit. You're up 11. There's 3 options that you could have done. The one you had where Northwestern read it fine and they got the ball and they scored. That was obviously bad. But if they kick off normal, there's no guarantee that they don't just score anyway, right? Because Nebraska didn't score a single point in the second half. So even if, let's say they get the onside kick, what if they sputter? Maybe they pin them deep, maybe things take a little bit longer, but like it's easy to point at that moment. And I'm sure it obviously did not help matters, but they didn't score a single point in the second half. So like it was right there for the taking, regardless of how that kick bounces.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd say the 3 stats that a coach can determine is one-score games, penalties, and turnovers. If Nebraska's towards the bottom of those, maybe you got a statistician back there. Trigger, let's get you on those numbers and see where, Nebraska ranks. But, to your point, while on the stat sheet it says Nebraska lost an onside kick, it goes beyond that when it comes to college football, especially with more eyeballs on that week 0 game. It's momentum, it's feel, it's looking at over your shoulder, realizing, man, like we might lose because of the idiotic, decision up 11 to go for an onside kick where the risk far outweighs the reward of having a chance to go up 14 or 20 instead of by 13, So overall, it was just a silly decision. And I would say that did play a little more of a role than just losing field position.
And I mean, the argument's always going to be there. Well, if they recover it, he looks like a genius. And he could, but like they get the ball around midfield. They had the ball at midfield a lot in the second half. Didn't really help, didn't score any points. So I guess to end this little topic here, I think it's obvious, he's on his last leg because he basically fired his entire staff that he, took from UCF there. All those guys are gone just about. They brought in new guys. He took a salary decrease or whatever. He basically gave up everything he could to get one more shot at this. So I don't think it's unreasonable to say if they don't make a bowl game minimum, I think he's out. And he might have to win that bowl game too. It might come down to that. That's my opinion. I don't know how you feel about it.
Well, I mean, as you said, we don't root for guys getting let go, but I would have let him go last year.
Yeah,
I think
after last year, definitely. I understand not for the COVID year, of course, because it's hard to release somebody after that. Like Mike Norvell, at Florida State had a rough year for COVID, but it was his first year. Like I don't think many coaches got fired after the COVID year, but after last year, like I said, he threw everybody under the bus. He gave money back. His salary got decreased. Like he did everything he could for this last lifeline. But I agree, like it would have made perfect sense to let him go last year.
Yeah, for USC, I forget. I'm drawing a blank on his name, but he didn't go after the COVID year. But he only coached like 2 games for 2021.
I remember.
Yeah, and then he got let go. Yeah, so I don't know if you remember that name. It could bail me out here, but
no. I don't. I leave the West Coast schools for you to tell me about. So
appreciate it, man. Appreciate it.
Speaking of West Coast schools, though, how's that for a segue? We didn't really get to talk about this much because I really had a wait and see attitude once this news broke because I thought there's going to be a lot more movement, and there eventually will be. It's eventually going to happen, obviously, but nothing yet. So we'll just go back to the headline from about a month ago. USC and UCLA, geography be damned, are moving to the Big Ten in, I don't know if the year is quite ironed out, but they're going to the Big Ten in the next 2 to 3 years.
And I think 2024.
Okay, so 2 seasons from now or whatnot. You live on the West Coast. I'm sure while you yourself aren't a Trojan or Bruin fan, I'm sure you know plenty of them. What's been the vibe out there?
It's been kind of weird, just like the national conversation. It's a lot about I don't know how to feel about this move. And in fact, I mean, I'm a little bit more on I think this is as bad as the Pac-12 is. I just don't love the move at all. Yeah. When you think about football travel, that's one thing. But when you get into baseball and volleyball and all the other programs that help you at least put yourself in a position to make money.
Yeah.
I mean, shoot, 2-3 trips across 2,700 miles each way to Syracuse and to all these other programs, that is just an insane ask. Rutgers, whatnot. Not Syracuse, but the point is, it's an insane ask for all these kids, all these teenagers to go across the country. So overall, it's an insane request. And while the Pac-12 has just been crumbling, and we could see some major movement on that in the near future, I'd feel a little lukewarm if I was fans of USC or UCLA. Other programs in the area feel now is our opportunity to dominate Southern California. So this is a pretty weak spot for a lot of these schools out here.
I mean, it makes sense for guys like you and me who work on these other non-football. We work plenty of football games as well, but we work these volleyball games, these baseball games, these soccer games. Mm-hmm. And like, sure, the travel budget's probably there for the football team to make these moves, but it won't be for those other things. So like, and you brought up a good point, and I'm sure you're right that all these schools are thinking this. And I didn't prep you on this, so you're just going to have to throw something out there. If a team is going to pull that off and dominate California now due to this, who do you think it would be?
I can't see why San Diego State wouldn't be that school. A little biased, but also that creates an opportunity for a lot of those northern schools to dominate Southern California. You'll be amazed just how many recruits from LA and San Diego go to Stanford and San Jose State and all these programs up in the north. So it's a great opportunity for those other programs. Lincoln Riley's got his hands full at USC, to be quite honest, now that he technically, yes, could recruit from other programs saying, hey, you'll be able to play Nebraska every other year. But the problem is that's a pretty hard sell when you're talking about bringing in guys from LA saying, hey, you're going to get real acquainted with an airplane all the time. So it's a crazy situation with those teams. But I'd say San Diego State has got a great chance to snag some extra recruits from that area.
From an outsider perspective, my mind would say Cal, but they have the same issue that like Stanford and like Notre Dame have, that their academics are on such a high bar that it's a little harder to get those guys that grades maybe aren't great but are really talented football players. So that's what would hold them back in this situation. But the first domino to fall in all this obviously was Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC. That's old news at this point. But I remember doing the math, like Texas, from the day that Colt McCoy got knocked out of the national championship game, they've averaged like 7-point-something wins a year. And that's in the Big 12. So if you are averaging 7-point-something and you go to the SEC, that average win total, it's not going up. It's going down. So whereas USC, a 9, they probably average around 9 wins if I had to guess. They haven't done the math on them. And
Trojan, you may be generous, maybe like 8.
Yeah, I mean they've had they'll sleepwalk through to a 10-win season all the time. Like we've seen it. They go to the Rose Bowl, they find a way to win it. It happens a lot. Mm-hmm. So I'm just gonna give them 9, and maybe I am being generous, but like if that's what you're used to, and you go to the Big Ten and you're starting to average 7 when you're fighting just to make a bowl game, like is the extra money worth it if you're not relevant? Which anyone behind the scenes is gonna say, yeah, give us the money, but it's all fan driven and student body driven and booster driven. And like that well's going to dry up if like you're only winning 7 games a year when you move to this. Would you rather be the big fish in the small pond or the little one in the giant in the ocean? I think that's what it comes down to.
It's hard to differentiate the difference between the Scott Frost situation and this situation. A program that is a top 15, top 20 program that believes it's top 5 and is making moves as if it can just run an entire conference, a la USC now, where, I mean, they have the potential to be top 5 if everything goes right. But to be completely honest, based on the trajectory and based on, the kids that they're recruiting, and even just during the Pete Carroll days, how short-lived that was. Right. It's hard for me to argue they're a top 5 football program. Then when you add in all the other university or all the other sports, this move, it screams the Scott Foster syndrome. I believe I'm a top 5 program, so I'm going to run to a new conference. And I think these programs are in for a really rude awakening. And we're not even talking about UCLA. How are they going to compete in this new conference too?
Yeah, and I mean they're another team that you talk about taking over. I think that it's basically been said, like these conversations were had with USC, and they pretty much said we're good to go, but you got to take these guys with us, and they didn't really fight them on that because like if you're gonna bring teams in, you might as well bring them in even numbers. That makes sense to me. And
Mhm.
if are a team that's going to like court Notre Dame, for example, because they're friends with benefits with the ACC, right? Everything but football, and then they play some games against, they help them out with their schedule. But basketball, baseball, all that stuff, that's an ACC school. And I don't know how long that agreement lasts or whatever. I have always thought like Notre Dame looks and feels like a Big Ten school. Like when I first started learning
Yeah.
college football, I assumed that's where they went. Because that's another thing we're going to lose too. The identity. When you say what does a Big Ten football team look like? What does an ACC football team look like? What does a Pac-12 football team look like? You have something to say. That's not going to happen anymore, and I'm worried that we're going to lose. Forget the regional rivalries that make college football great. We're just going to lose the identity of these conferences. It's like the AFC and the NFC. They're different, but they don't have distinguishing play styles. It's literally just an organizational thing. Whereas
Yeah.
like we're going to lose all that style. It's like the AL and the NL up until recently, like one had a DH and blah, blah, blah. So we're going to lose all that identity. And like, you're not going to notice it. Some of these people aren't going to notice it until it's gone. And it's going to add just this vanilla layer over something that used to be really exciting.
And also, that is a great point. But also, we're looking at conferences now that are getting so big that like 2 or 3 schools are going to get shrunk even more than they already are. You think that adding in Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC is not going to make Vanderbilt look even smaller now in that conference? And then you look, at the Big Ten, similar story too. Now that UCLA and USC are joining, there's coming to a point where these conferences have so many teams from so many different areas that you can basically just discount 3, 4, 5 programs from doing much more than just making marginal profits every year now, if that's even the case with all this extra travel. So there is incredibly dangerous downsides and a huge spiral that we've got going on right now in college football. And without much leadership, it's hard to say that this thing's going to change anytime soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the teams that got used to winning 9, 10 games are going to win 7. And those programs, like you said, like if they win 7 games and go to a bowl game, that's a good year for them. Guess what? Now they're winning 4 or 5. And,
Mm-hmm.
if you were finishing 8th in the conference before, now you're finishing 12th. And nobody's going to have fun with that at that point.
Yeah.
So it's one of those, it sounded good. It sounded like when you do conference realignment in NCAA 14, right? Sometimes
Yeah.
it's fun to move all these around. Like I'll put all the Florida schools in the SEC or whatever. You do that just to mess around. But there's a reason this hasn't been done before. And I'm a little worried on like how it's going to look when the carousel stops, but I guess we'll have to wait and see on that. So that's a lot of the catch-up stuff that we have, and now we can look to the true week 1 of college football. I think about so, well, I guess I'll mention, like I said in the beginning, UCF does play tomorrow. They kick off week 1 with a couple other teams. They play the I want to make sure I get the MEAC champs, South Carolina State, to open
All
up the
right.
year. HBCU national champs from last year after upsetting Jackson State in the Celebration Bowl. So you can't look past them. They're a good school and a good program. And as who was it used to say? Old Gator. Steve Sperry used to say, "Hey, those kids are on scholarship too, so you can't look past them, right?"
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking forward to it. I want to go to the game. I don't think I'm going to be able to make it. I'm not going to make it out to a game for a couple weeks, but I'm definitely going to be home watching it. So I'm looking forward to. We got new uniforms still. I'm looking forward to see how those look on the field, and I'm looking forward to that game. And I know not everybody that listens to this is a UCF fan, but I wanted to get that out there. They are kicking off the shindig, starting that. Miami plays Bethune-Cookman. I have like 6 games here that I think are the ones that people would care about. UF is playing Utah for the first time since 1969. Florida is opening with a ranked opponent, and they're actually
All
underdogs at
right.
home. So that's going to be an interesting game. We have
Yeah.
the Bulldogs, reigning national champion UGA against Oregon, another one that I think people are going to enjoy. Notre Dame and Ohio State. We have Cincy and Arkansas. Clemson is trying to get back on track. They're starting the season with an ACC opponent in Georgia Tech. And Florida State and LSU are the nightcap. They actually play on Sunday. And FSU actually had a week 0 game against UQuane, which I did not know had a football team. I only knew them as a basketball school. But that game went about as what you'd expect. Florida State, 3 different running backs went over 100 yards in that game. They had more rushing
Wow.
yards last week than Miami had all of last season. So at least they're tuned up, ready to go. And I think it's going to be a very even game for LSU just because LSU's not rocking and rolling like it used to. FSU's trying to get back. So if there's only one game to watch on Sunday, that's a pretty intriguing one. But out of those listed, what's, for you as a college football fan, what are you most looking forward to?
I thought Texas played somebody big that week. I was looking, but I don't think
Bama next week. That's probably
that's what it is. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, I was surprised looking at the college rankings that Clemson, after the year they had, is ranked so high.
I thought
what
so
are they,
too.
third or something like that?
They're fourth in the one I looked at, but they could be third somewhere else. Yeah.
Right. Dabo Swinney's still a great coach, but man, he doesn't look quite the same after calling out Colin Cowherd or whatever he said after that national championship. But I got to say that Notre Dame Ohio State game's got to be really interesting because of a couple of fronts. The Heisman race, is Notre Dame a top 5 program? Ryan Day, how are they going to translate? I believe Ohio State had among the most guys graduate, or go to the NFL.
Sure.
So their turnover is pretty severe. How are they going to look?
Plus, there's a new head coach. That's going to be interesting.
Right. So that is the national game to watch. That's prime time, and that's got to be on everybody's radar. Yeah. And then just as a slippery side note, since you sneak in your program, San Diego State's debuting a 35,000 seat stadium called Snapdragon Stadium. They play
Great
Arizona.
Name. Just to cut you off, that is like one of the cooler names. Is that a brand, or do they just come up with that? Is that like a sponsor that you know?
Yes. Yeah, they got a dragon in the logo. I'd like to see where they put a dragon on the stadium. I'll be going at some point. So, it's a pretty awesome stadium.
Who do they got when they open the stadium?
Arizona.
Oh,
Arizona on Saturday.
And that's, I assume, for where I'm sitting, it's a late game. I assume where you are, it's just a normal evening game. I would imagine.
I believe they're a 3:00 game, actually.
Okay,
let me double.
So that puts them at 6:00 over here. So.
Right.
So for me, the Florida-Utah game is very interesting because, new coach.
That's a 12:30 game. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Got it. So, and like I said, they usually don't open the season this way. Florida State kind of we'll play the warm-up game so that when we get to LSU, we at least, we've been rocking and roll. We're moving a little bit. Remember, and it's Brian Kelly's LSU coaching debut, and he's quoted as saying, Florida State has an advantage because they've played a game before already this year, and we have an advantage because we haven't. And I could see it going both ways. We've seen a little, and they were very vanilla. Like I said, they just ran it down their throats. When 3 running backs get over 100 yards, clearly, you ran the ball a lot. All 3 of them scored a touchdown. Jordan Travis, the quarterback, also ran in a touchdown. So they didn't really give away a lot as far as the passing game goes. So I'm sure it just felt good to get out there. You got to remember, this is a team that lost to an FCS opponent last year, so you can take nothing for granted. So I think FSU, I'm looking forward to that too, because that's 2 programs, 2 big names that are kind of working on their way up, I would say. And so it's kind of an even game, even though it's not, when you think Florida State and LSU, it's a little lower than you would think, but they're kind of even, and even teams make good games. So if there's only one game on Sunday like there is, I'm glad it's that one.
And how the mighty have fallen. Just a couple of years ago, LSU was one of the most dominant single-season teams we've ever seen. And then now, I don't know if they're ranked or not, but they sure aren't all that high on the rankings.
I don't think either. And it's crazy. Like, they had the Fiesta Bowl win over UCF in Joe Burrow's first year there. Then they do the 15-0 year. Then they go to like 6-7. So that rise and fall was so quick that if you're an LSU fan, you're like, did I dream that? Did that really happen? But, just quietly assembling one of the greatest college football teams of all time and then going right back to mediocrity. That's pretty impressive that LSU was able to do that. The Oregon-Georgia game, I think that's going to be good. I mean, Georgia's obviously, national.
They also lost a lot of guys too.
Yes, they did. A lot on defense mostly, which is of course the bread and butter of that team. The Cincinnati-Arkansas game I'm looking forward to because Cincy is still trying to
they're the lone ranked team in that conference. I saw.
Yeah, I know we're in the 30s. We string 1 or 2 together, we'll probably be ranked. Houston's in a similar boat. SMU's getting some love as well, but to start the year, Cincy's the only one. And Arkansas, a lot of people are picking them like 3rd in the SEC. Basically, you got Alabama, Georgia, and everybody else. But I think the everybody else leader is Arkansas because they had a great year last year, beat Penn State in the Outback Bowl, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of what they do. And I think that's another game, 2 really evenly matched teams. that we'll get to see more of. You probably have a little more insight on the games on your side of the country. So, is there any other games you're looking? Those are just the 6 with big, ranked opponents. But is there anybody else that you're looking forward to watching this week?
Not necessarily. There are a lot of cupcake games here on the West Coast, except with the exception of that Oregon game that you talked about. It is just one of those things that we kind of touched on. It feels like over the years, as college football's non-conference schedule has increasingly gotten more vanilla and bland, I think the Band-Aid improvement that some of these schools might have taken into transferring to new conferences, saying, hey, we can't get universal scheduling around here because we don't have a leader. So let's go ahead and just go into the conference that we want to play. So now instead of, Alabama playing more cupcake games, now they're going to play Texas in a conference game now. So that's the tragedy of it. And, that's the story for this year too. There's some marquee games, but it's thin around here right now in college football.
So I did just find one other one for the first time in a few years, because now that they're no longer in the same conference, they don't get to play very often. The Backyard Brawl kicking it off this year, West Virginia and Pitt. That's a good rivalry from back in the day, and they get to redo that. You brought up a good point, though. It's like it's a little hard to schedule these kind of games, and with all this realignment and everything going on, it makes you wonder, like, what's the future of bowl games? Are we going to expand the playoffs? Are the bowl games not going to matter as much? And this isn't my theory, but when I heard it, I thought it was great. I wouldn't be shocked, because we had these big kickoff games like the Chick-fil-A Classic and all the things that are going on. Would not shock me, and again, this is not my idea, but I could see it happening. The bowl games kind of become those week 1 big game kickoff games. Well, not every bowl game, but maybe the Liberty Bowl becomes that Florida State LSU game that kicks it off. Maybe the Outback Bowl is the Georgia Oregon game. Maybe some of these bowl games, instead of the end of the season, they're the kickoff games for that's something some of these bowl games may have to do to survive in the new college football.
Wow, I have not even thought of that. But it would be interesting, because even though these bowl games are spread out over a 2-week period, you've got like a number of bowl games that are like a third capacity. All these fans are now on to basketball, all these students and whatnot. So that would be a great idea. I got to admit, I haven't thought much about it. That's a great idea.
Yeah, I'm scrolling through a few. Yeah, Alabama's got Utah State, but they got Texas next week is probably the one that you were thinking of.
Yes. Yeah.
So are you gonna go to this grand opening of Snapdragon Stadium? Sounds like
no, but one of those non-conference games. San Diego State's always really, really sneaky. They are in some bad news right now, but for the most part, San Diego State is one of those quiet programs that just has a sneaky 10-11 win season and always is in that top 25 conversation. It looks like this year there certainly will be no different. They've got the former Michigan coach Brady Hoke out there now, and it seems like he's kind of found his footing at San Diego State. That's a good spot for him. And San Diego State every year plays these Pac-12 schools. They played a couple of them last year, including Utah, that they won in triple overtime. So, this is a team that's Pac-12 able. In fact, what's crazy about our conversation with USC and UCLA is that USC cannot sniff a candle to the Pac-12 record that San Diego State has. The Aztecs have won like 80% of their Pac-12 games in the last decade. USC is like 45%. So it is insane to think that the Aztecs, with maybe a third the budget of USC, is winning almost twice the Pac-12 games on average as them, per game. So really incredible stuff.
So are you going out to this game, or at any point this season? Are you going to check out this new stadium or what?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Of course. First couple.
Oh, you're going to go this week, or are you going to wait a few weeks?
No. Busy this week. Unfortunately, the game that I might have to debut is when they play Toledo. No offense to those fans out there in Ohio, but that might be the game I go to. No official announcement yet, but you'll hear it right here.
Gotcha. Yeah, no disrespect there to the Rockets. But, hey, it's a good game to check it out, I would think. I look at San Diego State, and I mean this with all the respect in the world. They remind me of the California version of UCF, the way they're building their foundation.
I would have said the same thing.
Because you can get a program built on in a place like Florida or California. You get the 3-star kids that would be 4 or 5-star kids in other states, And you
Mm-hmm.
can build, like, whenever you get a recruit and it's like, oh, he's only a 3-star. And then I've told multiple friends this. He's a 3-star in Florida. That's easily a 4-star in Minnesota or, maybe not Ohio, but like plenty of other states. You can give that guy another star, and you can build a program off 3-star kids. Get the occasional 4-star kid. It starts rolling, rocking and rolling like that. So I definitely enjoying seeing their rise up, and it reminds me a lot of what I've witnessed over here.
Yeah, it's like when you're a 3-star kid in California, you're playing a lot of other 4 or 5-star kids in California. When you're a 4-star guy in North Dakota, you're playing 1-star guys at best.
Absolutely.
You're the talk of the whole state. And on your own program, you might have 2 other guys that are also getting college offers in the state of Callionia.
Yeah, because when you're looking at, like, they base those stars off of the competition in that state. So it's like the best kid in, like Idaho, let's say, is probably
Mm-hmm.
like a 3-star in Florida or California or Texas or Ohio, those hotbed places. So it's
Right.
interesting. One of the many things wrong with recruiting rankings, like some guys will be a 5-star, but depending on the school they sign with, they're now a 4-star. Wonder how that happened. And then Alabama signs a 4-star kid. Oh, look, he's a 5-star all of a sudden. Wonder how that happened. Just one of the many
Yeah.
things that are wrong.
Yeah, don't get me started with the top-rated recruit going to Texas, Arch Manning, and the fact that, I'd say his last name had a lot to do with that, considering when you look at his numbers, it's
Film.
just mediocre. Like he was a good quarterback, but by 5-star standards, it was mediocre. So
Yeah.
I'd like to see if he really is the best player in high school football for this last year when he plays over at the Longhorns.
Yeah, and if I'm someone that's trying to prove I'm not overrated, I don't know if Texas is the place to do that in. Just my
Yeah,
opinion, whatever. But yeah,
great point.
that's about gonna wrap it up here, guys. Real quick, I want to give a shout out to my buddy Kenny Scherlinger, who recently got a position at Western Michigan University, so he'll be up there this week when they take on Michigan State, which is funny because Kenny is a diehard Michigan State fan. So congrats to you, my friend. Good to see you got that gig up there and have a
Good
lot of
job,
fun.
Kenny.
And that's going to do it here, guys. We hope to see you back next week where we'll be in these same chairs previewing week 1 of the NFL season. So enjoy college football in all its glory, and we'll see you next week when we talk the NFL. Thanks for watching.